Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Open the Door Part 3. Hi there. I'm joined by Moisen.
Yes. How's it going?
How's your week been, Moisen? You good?
Yeah, it's been mad. Headphones on. A lot of that, so...
Well, me too. I've been in the studio hard this week. But last time we left it, thank you so much for all your questions again and your feedback that you've sent us. We really appreciate it. This is the third in the series. We've got one more talk left. And if you could stick with us, and we're going to drop some links in to everybody. And we've got a little poll that takes 3 minutes, no longer, I promise. We would love your input because we want to create something a little bit more permanent. And I think, Moisen, I think you feel the same. Absolutely loved doing these talks. And I wish we could just do them endlessly. But, help us out with this little poll. I'll drop the link in. And, we will get cracking. So I think that what we'll do this week is I started off the tune and then I tagged it to Moisen, and then he worked on the drums, and then I worked a little bit on the bass, and then he worked on the bass. So we'll show you how far we've come, which is good. Let's start off with, shall I show where my drums were first and how far we've progressed, Moisen? What do you think? Should we do
that's
that?
a good idea. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, that could be cool. Okay, so let's jump in, and for the first hour and a bit, we'll do production, studio session. And today, what are we going to cover today? We're covering all kinds of stuff, but we'll just show you. But let me just share the screen, and we'll get to where we are. Share screen. And let's jump in. Hi to everybody in the chat first off. Let's go. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all hear and see that fine. Please let us know in the chat. You're not Moisen, if you could just keep an eye on the chat, that'd be great.
No worries.
So we left everything sort of around here with me. Hold on, I've got a couple of Reeses that shouldn't be playing there. Naughty.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this week. Just getting involved with the progression of what we've been doing. It's been quite exciting.
It's got much different. Okay, so that's where I had left it, and then I tagged Josh and he started to work on the drums, and I've asked him to group those drums together and send them to me. But let's go to his door and see what he did with the drums, because last week, if you remember, we went through side chaining, compression, parallel compression and effects, and he'll talk you through roughly what he went over. But if you remember, it was adding distorted break behind a break and stuff like that. And if you've missed any of these, of course, you can go back and watch part 1, part 2. But if you signed up on the link, which I will drop in the box, you know that I edit all of these streams down, get rid of all the waffle, and just send you basically a free lesson.
Yeah, it's free.
It's free. So just sign up on the link, and then you'll get the cut down version, so you don't have to scroll through all the talking and chat, of which there is quite a lot.
Yeah, and I suppose it's quite good as well, because you can sort of follow along quite well, pause it, have a look at your bits and sort of copy. So it's quite a good learning tool.
Absolutely. Let's get your screen up and chat about what you did.
Yeah, so last week we obviously did a lot of resampling our break with loads of bits of distortion, and we sort of came across these sort of layers. If I can solo it and you can have a quick listen. That's they've got a crispy sort of audio layer. And we also made this little thing. I think this is out of the Think break. We managed to emphasize this.
Yep.
Here's the Think, right? Hopefully I'm right. So yeah, then what we did was we sort of enhanced the kick, layered the snare a little bit, and took Rap's previous idea and just moved it on to the next stage. And then obviously, I remember you said last week, didn't you, Rap, that perhaps the drums may not fit with the basses that we did, and you were right. They didn't quite fit. It was the wrong style. I sort of got warped into doing the drums.
But I think that's an important lesson that everyone can see what happens, because even the best of us, if you get so focused on the sound design and so focused on the thing without listening to it as a whole, and what I've noticed with you, Moisen, and this is, I'm not judging at all, but what I tend to do is listen to the tune a lot. But you were straight in with the drums for like an hour and we didn't even hear the bass.
Yeah.
It's important to go back, get some perspective, listen to the track from the beginning to the end, and give yourself a break, because otherwise that can happen. So what did you do to remedy the situation?
Yeah, so I sort of played it with the bass. This is now obviously off stream, what I did sort of within the week gone. I just sort of played the basses and then moved the drums around a little bit. There's not too major, I can walk you through it really quickly, but I'll just give it a quick play twice over so you can sort of hear what I did. Make sure it's not soloed, of course.
You messed with the bass.
Yeah, a couple of times through,
I like that little turnaround you did with the bass at the beginning. I think we're going to have to keep that. I love that.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm glad you approve. I'm not going to lie.
I love it. No, and those drums sound really fat. They're nice and spanking. That's awesome.
Cool. So a quick run through of what I actually did then is I felt as though that when we went from that Reese right at the start, which is quite like a dominant in the high end, if I'll just play the Reese on its own. That's quite dominant in the high frequencies, and obviously with the Amen break as well, you've got like a super big thing. And I felt like the drums, when they dropped into, for example, just the kick and the snare, which I'll get rid of that for a second, it sounded like it just flattened off. You know, it sort of loses its energy, and there's not really any. It kind of like it's too much of a drastic change. So, made this little splash layer. Actually, I didn't make it. Sorry, it was actually from Bunchin. It's one of his sort of samples that he's got. So big up to Bunchin.
Big up Bunchin. He's amazing. Now that is a serious producer. He's so good.
Agreed.
Every time I listen to his tracks, I'm like, I'm going to stop making music now.
Me too.
It's one of those people you don't want to put his tracks in your door because you're just it's never going to sound as good.
We need to send him it. So to layer with that kick and the snare, I felt as though that it needed that high energy, but really sharp hi-hats were really they were too much. So literally it was kind of like a really washy cymbal sound, which I'll play. So you see how that if we actually have a look at it real quick, it's not spiky in the oscilloscope. It's really flat, really smooth. Whereas if you listen to hi-hats and have a look, they're quite pointy, and it was just too much.
I was just thinking how the other day I worked on drums, and I was literally working on drums for like 3 hours, and I just thought people, they think this is so glamorous, but if they actually know how freaking boring it can be. But I'm obsessed. I'm sitting here just going, oh yeah, that compression's just perfect. But 3 hours working on drums on a track, it's just funny. It made me laugh, that's all.
It's
you have
easy
to be
done.
obsessed. You have to be obsessed.
Yeah.
This isn't for those who aren't obsessed.
Yeah. So what else I did was I played around with the snare for about an hour. It kind of that's how it works. And if you remember, we made this fundamental, which is a nice little pop. Sort of looks like that. And I changed this particular high layer. I must have gone through, I don't know, 20 different sounds because because again I wasn't listening to it in context like Rap said, and I just felt nothing was right and nothing would go, but I ended up landing on this one, which gave that sort of snappy snare sound. It really cut through those basses.
That kick 2 is such a game changer. It's incredible. You guys should try it. how much you've got the snare, and then when you've added that kick to your little sign, it's incredible how much of a punch and a snap it gives it. It's mind-blowing. It blew my mind the first time I ever did that, and it's just something I do now every single time. You know, I love that little thing, and it's a really great way of getting your snares to punch through. I have a question for you, Moisen, actually.
Shoot.
A lot of times when I'm side chaining, you've got the kick side chaining, but I was thinking, so I've got a double shaper box, and I'll do one shaper box for the kick and one for the snare. Even though I've got the kick through, I feel like it should cut through a little bit. Is that to you a no-no, or is that something that you think is a taste thing? Is that a bad idea to side chain the snare as well, even though you've got the kick 2 on it?
Absolutely not. I think side chaining the snare is a really good way if you feel like you've got really powerful sounds in your tune. Like, if let's say, perfect example actually is this Reese. It's so frequency dominant and it's so powerful, which is not playing. That's a bit of an anticlimax.
So silent.
There's a lot in it, and you can even see on the oscilloscope. So when you have that sort of application, you want your snare to pop through really well, then absolutely put the shaper box on that Reese and just give it a really nice little sort of click that goes through it. I can always show what that looks like, and it's the same as what we did on the snare, just with everything else, and it just cuts it right through the mix. It's great.
So if you guys think about it, when you're making a track, and for those of you who are fairly new, it's really simple, right? You've got your bass group, and you want to have the side chain on your bass group, and then you would side chain basically your kick, and you'd have another shaper box if you want. If this is how you want to go, I mean, there's a million ways to side chain things. You could just use your compressor from Ableton and do it that way if you wanted to. I'm not saying this is the only way. You must follow this cult. It's just but then I would have another shaper box, which I have on my when I'm working, and I'll have the snare cut through as well, because I think having those cut through, if you've got a really elongated bass, especially like a Reese, which is long notes, they're legato notes, they'll cut through really nicely, Yeah. Just definitely. Give a couple of quick shouts out to Wezzy Wez, PC, Christopher Grantham, Neil Holdsworth, Voyager, Tyson, Tim Dent. I know Scope was saying hi as well earlier. Hello to everybody who has joined from all over.
Yeah, that's awesome. The what else? I also actually, yes, I changed the kick actually with this.
Okay, I just want to stop. Sorry, but there's a lot of crackles and pops, and I want to explain this. And we've got someone coming to my house to see if they can sort this out, because last week, so please don't complain, because we have spent like 20 hours on this, and also, we're trying to sort it out. But here's the thing. Moisen is on a PC, piece of crap, and he's using Firefox, and I'm on a Mac and using Chrome. So for some reason, when we switch to Firefox, there are no crackles on the mic whatsoever. But you lose the ability to see third-party plugins whilst we're demonstrating. So if I was to say on my screen, here we go, I'm going to show you Serum, you wouldn't see it. And then we decided that we'd rather have the crackles than you not be able to see what we're doing. So yes, we understand that. Just bear with us. It's all good. All right? Carry on, Moisen.
Nice one, thank you. Yeah, so with the kick, I actually decided to take that sample out that we had, and replace it with a synthetic kick, and it's the same sort of process as the snare that we did last week, and it was just it's with a Serum, and what I've sort of done is just add a simple sine wave that modulates in level, downwards, and pitch. And
hold on a minute. What did you do? Wait. Tried to sneak that past us. Did you see that, everyone? Like, he just tried to slip that one in. Re-explain that, because my head was focused on the crackles still. So show us what you did.
So the kick sounds like this, and the kick also looks like, I think it's important for me, I'm quite a visual person.
It's because you're a guy.
And it also looks like this. So it's like quite a nice sort of shape. And so in Serum, it's like it's a sine wave, so obviously if I just play it as it is, you just get a sine wave, and if it's up a few octaves, it doesn't sound like a kick whatsoever. But what I've done is pitched it down and thought about how a kick is sort of constructed, and if you hear the initial hit and then it sort of goes down in pitch. So I've linked the LFO1 to the level of this so that it goes down. So it's like quick. It's like a membrane of a kick drum.
Insane
And then
in the membrane.
Yeah, just thinking that as well. And then the second LFO modulates the pitch, because that doesn't, I mean, it sounds all right, but it's not quite like a kick. So the second LFO's got a real fast pitch modulation on this coarse pitch up here. And that sort of gives it a bit more character and tone. And then this LFO3 then also modulates the coarse pitch again, just to give it a real good sharp click at the front, and then it just sounds like quite a nice membraney sort of kick.
Now imagine you do that and then you bounce that kick and then you sample it at different pitches and rebound, and now you've got like your own sample library of kicks that are just for you, and you want to tune them. So it'd be good probably to use a what's the word I'm looking for? I've lost the word. When you see the spectrum analyzer, there you go, and it'll tell you which key your kick is in. You want to keep your keys in the sub bass friendly, so I'd have a bunch of like G's, a bunch of like F's, a bunch, that sort of thing, so that you've got your own kicks, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea, because you could bounce them, couldn't you? And of all different keys, and you could have a folder that's literally like A sharp all the way through. I'm actually going to do that.
Oh, steal my idea, would you? How very dare you?
So yeah, that was really that's as far as improving those the break for the basses went. Just double check, see if I don't.
We got a question here, and it says, "Why not make the kick in kick 2?"
That is a great question, because kick 2 is designed for kicks, right?
I'll let you navigate that one.
No, the only reason why is because I started with Serum doing snares and doing kicks, and I'm only just familiar with kick 2 for the snares at the moment. I know that seems backwards.
Oh, I love how honest you are. That's awesome. It's good to be honest, because we don't know everything. We're not oracles. What do I know? I've only gone triple platinum.
That was like,
no, but like, you've got to be honest. Sometimes you don't know the answer, man. It's
sure.
It's funny, isn't it?
Definitely.
Hey, Dan.
And I've actually in the past I've been somebody who's like, yeah, I know the answer, but it turns out I didn't really. So
yeah, you don't want to be a fluffer.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? I don't think that's the right word. So so basically that's what you did to the drums to get them up to any point. Has anyone got any questions? I forgot I even had kick 2, Tim says. Has anyone got any questions relating to the drums whilst Josh has got that session open, or you can add them after and we can go back and forth? How about I show them how you got that Reese nice and fat? I tell you what would be interesting, Moisen. Let me don't show them what you did to the bass sound design.
Okay.
Let me flip over to my door and see what I would do sound design wise to a bass, and then let's flip back to maybe your basses and you work on the jump up bit, and that way we can show each other's processes and see if they're at all similar or whatever, and that could be quite interesting. I think that could be fun to tag, so tag me, I'm it. What I'll do is I will remove you, and I will add, and by the way, if you guys want to, let me just do this real quick whilst I'm doing this. Bear with us, everyone. Copy. I'm just going to drop a link in the box here real quick. Earlier I dropped a link that was, and did I pin it? I don't know if I did. But here's a poll. If you want to copy and paste that, let's see. Can I pin this thing? How do I do that? Let me show that. Got this.
Pinned it on Twitch.
You pinned it on Twitch, did you?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to pin stuff on here. Anyway, I'm just going to show this. This is the poll. And when you're done, just copy and paste that. We would love you. But think you get to be part of the creative process. How cool is that, eh? So if you could just nick that for a second and copy and paste that and maybe help us out and fill it in. It's literally 4 questions. That's it. that would really be awesome. Let me see if I can pin this puppy. Stop disappearing on me every time I go to pin it. No, that's saying block user. I'll let you do that. So let me go to my session. I give up. Can't be asked. Okay, present. When things are too difficult, unless it's music, I just give up. Share screen, not really the best attitude to have, but the only one I've got. Let me make that full screen.
Yeah, guys, if you do have any questions, keep them coming in. I'm monitoring the chat as well as Rap, and we'll put them to one side and definitely get answering them.
Okay. So now you've heard how it can progress with the right drums, and he's obviously done some sound design to the bass, and I'm curious to see what he's done. But what I want to do is show you how I would put some sound design to my Reeses and make them sound like that in a way. So if you remember, and don't forget you can use the enlarge button to see this all big. So it's at the bottom of the right hand of the screen then. It's really helpful if you want to see things larger. Can't watch this on a phone. So here is, and let me just solo this. And this is after I've added some sound design to it. Hold on a second. Let me mute the other one. Solo this. I would say that's quite a big difference.
Send me that, please.
Well, you've got your own, you thief. But look, point is, we've got this. So let's have a look at how we can recreate this sound design and help you start on your sound design journey. Now, I will say, again, this is not a cult. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. You could use all the plugins that are within Ableton and just use distortions and racks and do that. But because we've been showing you with Wave Shaper and plugins like that and EQing with the Pro Q3, we want to stick to the same plan if that's all right with you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I've dragged and copied the Reeses down here so that we can just work on them simply. Close this up because it's all getting a bit messy for me. And I just want to be able to focus on what we've got here. So on this channel, if you look at the bottom, we've just got the Reese with no sound design. And then on this channel is what I did to the Reese. And we're going to recreate all of this step by step. I think that'll be quite fun for everybody. So the first thing obviously is we've got is Serum. And if we go here and take a look at Serum, my one and only synth. So lonely.
Serum's been a friend of mine for a while.
So lonely.
Got Tim Dent in the chat saying that's one nice Reese. Why doesn't mine sound like that?
I'm about to show you. All will be revealed.
Here we can learn.
So here we've got. And if you remember, I showed you how to make a Reese. It's two basic shapes. Go to analog, basic shapes. We'll put it on a square. I've put the unison up by 2 and slightly detuned them a little bit. I made sure to go to the global. We've turned the width down to 0. And I've got the random. Well, I left it there. It should really always be. Well, not always. I'll leave it there for now. But normally I turn the random off so it always oscillates at the same place and starts over from the same place. So that's a basic Reese, right? If you really want to go into depth, go to part 1 and I showed everyone how to do it there. I'm going to change this to digital and I'm going to go for harmonic series. And what I'll do is I'll probably, keep that like that. And I'm going to bring the wave maybe down a bit more. And I'm going to put a filter on, leave it for the one that's on there. I just felt that it gave a little bit more warmth, gave a little bit more warmth if I put it on harmonic series. And, you can play around with all the presets and all the things that there is because you'll make your own identifiable sounds. Can't speak. Okay. So that's all we did. There's no effects, nothing else going on here. Very, very basic. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat, I don't know why. So let's look at the, just looking at the questions, I'm getting distracted, which I mustn't do. You're monitoring that, right, Josh?
Yes, monitoring that, thank you. Yeah.
Okie dokie, let's put some EQing on. That's the first thing I want to do. And I'm going to go to my FabFilter Pro 3. I'm going to put that, drop it after here. Let's have a look-see. Now, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to roll off. If you listen, you can see there's a bit I don't actually need there, right, to get technical with you. So I'm going to roll some of some of that off.
Yeah, a lot of people definitely miss it. I think it's really important as well, definitely.
I'm just going to roll that off to about, I don't know, 35, something like that. Maybe I'll do a bit more of a gentle slope like that. The thing that I have found that is mind-blowing for me is learning how to scoop the mid frequencies. And the reason I say this is mind-blowing is, I'll explain it in a minute. Let's go down to about minus 30. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So about minus 30, and I'm going to tighten this Q up a bit. And what I'm looking to do here is create space, because don't worry that I'm cutting all the bass out, just bear with me. I want to leave frequencies because the Reese is just full on, isn't it, Moisten? It's like a wall of sound, right? And I want to scoop things out in the bass area because I want to leave frequencies for the synths, melodies, and things that live in that frequency. So I'm going to do quite a big scoop here, and I might bump the top up a little bit. Just a small bump. Sorry. Oh.
Your mind went somewhere then.
It went to the dark place. All right. Such a moron. Okay, so the important thing here is the scooping of that midsection there, because it's going to completely change where your sounds lie and things like. So if we turn the EQ off. Sounds quite dirty, but if you turn it off, sounds really clean. And now we'll start to add some of that weight in there. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to get rid of this for a minute. And of course, I'll keep playing around with it and, you know, changing things as things develop. I mean, nothing is set in stone. That's not it for life.
Yeah, I find that that's a really great point to have, is like when you're making these sounds and stuff, just like I actually proved last week, that if you do focus in on one sound without context, you can kind of get a little bit lost in it. So it always is subject to change the further on that you go.
Most def. Reese is fat. Thank you, LZ. Okay, so moving on. We've now got our distortion here. We've got our wave shaper, my favorite plugin in the whole world. Love you. Marry me. And we're going to go to edit, create 3 bands, and play around with these bands basically. So probably on the first one, what I'm going to do, put the dry wet up 100%. And if you listen, I mean, if you look, you can see that line oscillating. That's where the action is, right? So I'm going to make a point and I'm going to start bringing this up. That sounds good to start with. Got some nice. And if I mute it so you can see the difference. Without.
Nice.
I'm not going to over the top. I can, of course, go over the top later. So let's just leave that for now. Let's go to the middle band and let's put this up 100% as well. And let's see where the action is. Okay, so this time I'm going to do something funky. I'm going to take this up and I'm going to right click here, and this is going to give me a menu of different shapes. So I'm going to pick a sine shape, close it, and what I want to do, oh, Bart Simpson haircut, awesome. So, serious.
That caught me off guard.
I know. And this really adds this sort of, how would you describe it, Moisten? It adds a sort of fragmented, like...
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like a fragmented grit that's on it. Yeah, it's crazy
my alarm
because...
telling me I haven't posted on social media today. I don't care. Okay. Right. Sorry, what were you saying? What would you describe this as?
Yeah, I think fragmented is really good. It's like a fragmented part of that spectrum there. It's just like, basically, it's mashing it up and giving you some interesting texture.
Mash it up. So without, with, and of course subject to change. And let's take a look at our tops a second. I'm going to keep the dry wet 50% on this one, I think. And I'm just going to bump. Nice and crispy. And then of course you can go back and forth and change things, you know, maybe it's not dirty enough, maybe you want it harder, you know, different things. So I'm going to go get sausage, fattener. I'm going to go get sausage. Sorry. I'm being so childish. Sorry. Sorry. Not sorry.
Just a quick question in the chat from Stanley Taylor. Is the Reese bass named after the man himself?
Oh, what a good question. Google.
Yeah, the Reese bass got its name from Kevin Saunderson. He made a tune.
Strings of Life, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Pass.
I can't remember anything. Maybe not. I might have got that wrong, but I don't think I did. But maybe I did. Anyway, who knows? Okay, let's get the sausage. And we're going to bump this up a little bit here. Now that's a razor cutting through. So I'm going to group all of these together so you can hear what they sound like when they're all not applied and when they are applied. So let's just group it all together. Group. And what I'm going to do, I didn't want to do that actually. I wanted to undo it. Let me group these. Sorry, I grouped the wrong thing. Here we go. Let's group these. What are you typing away there?
It was QWL Music just asked if it was like granular effect, which it's kind of like granular, but the granules stay in place.
All right, the granules stay in place. So this is with, without. Can you
I love
hear
that
the
hum
difference?
that you've got that's in that mix. It's so nice.
Big, fat, and heavy. That's a big one. So basically, that is all I did to that bass to make it sound really good. And of course, you can go in and you could add some convolution reverb to that if you wanted to. I'm not sure about reverb on a Reese, but maybe a little boxy one. Should we try one and see if it sounds any good or not? I don't know. Would you put a reverb on a Reese?
Yeah, I would do, yeah.
Yeah? It's funny because you never really get the opportunity to ask other producers really so much, like, because a lot of them, they're, bless them, they're quite protective over their sounds and they don't want to really share their sounds. So they're like, how do you do that? Oh, you know. Well, no, clearly that's why I'm asking. But yeah, so, I mean, you know, who knows? But let's try something. I would say probably, and again, this is the same sort of process. You create 3 bands, mess around with the bands and experiment on what you want to do. I mean, probably I wouldn't do anything on the bass. Maybe the mid.
Yeah, I think me personally, yeah, mid and tops, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to go to the bass here and I'm going to turn the dry wet off, right? And I'm just going to look, and you can see the waveform. So I might elongate my mid a bit, and I think I'm going to work on the I might work on the top first actually. I want to hear the tail. So box is good for this, for short reverbs, early reflections could be good. I mean, hear the difference. That's mental. And I'm not saying that's what we want. I'm just saying you might want that. Who knows? It's a bit nasally, but let's push this up so we can hear the difference. That's quite nice. And then you'll have to go back and adjust your wave shaper if there's too much. Oh, you know what I forgot to put on here? I need to put a limiter on here because I want to protect the peaks of everything. So I would probably say to you, yeah, I'll probably put that on after the first wave shaper, and I'll do that in a second. Because the peaks can get a little out of control. Okay, so let's leave that one. Let's go to this. Let's put a box on here and see what happens. You can hear how easily you can transform your bass. Let me just get a limiter because you've got to protect those peaks. Fab L. Let's put that.
I've just come up with an idea for a T-shirt. Protect those peaks. I definitely am going to get that.
Oh my God. That's just the worst idea ever, literally. I'm just going to put a limiter after my wave shaper, and that'll just make sure everything's protected. Why don't you just get a T-shirt that says check out my dub plates whilst you're at it?
That's actually a good idea.
There you go. So now we'll put our convolution in the group, and we've got everything in a group which we can save and apply for later on with just tweaks. So now you've got this awesome bass sound design rack. And if we listen to it without, with, better. So it's really not that complicated. It doesn't have to be hard. You just use the same plugins over and over again. I have sat with people that just make this so complicated, and I just feel like sticking needles in them and doing things to them, because it's like, it doesn't have to be. There are other ways you can do this as well. Let me demonstrate. You could, let's duplicate this channel. If you wanted to, you could, let's get rid of this, all our lovely work. You could put a rack together, and you could stack everything with a rack and just drop your plugins in using Ableton plugins. You could do that using distortion and create the same thing again if you wanted to. You could just go close this. And is there anywhere similar to your process, Moisin?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the wave shaper, because that's a really good plugin. You can kind of like make a huge chain, just like Rap did, or and you can make it as big as you want, small as you want. But then once you've done that, and then you can go back into the synth and start making really small changes in the synth, and it just starts to make it sound. It does dramatic effects on the end result because you've got all that processing that's on top of it.
It's dramatic, oui. And then you right click, so you get an audio effect rack, right click, create chain, and you can call this one dry, and then you can create another chain underneath, and you could call this EQ, or you could call this wave shape, or whatever you want, distort, so you know what it is. And, you can have the sounds being parallel, but not being overtaken by the sound, which is a different way of doing things. It's more parallel processing. I'm going to put another one here. What did we do after that? Distort, we wanted to do limiter, I would say. So I'll call this limit. So there's millions of ways to do it, but to me this is longer, but I mean, it's up to you, isn't it? And then what did we have last? Sausage. I'll call it Dada, so I know what it is, because it's easier to spell, Dada. And then last we had reverb, right? So you can go ahead and put whatever you want in this chain. I'm watching so much Viking stuff at the moment, and every time they say Valhalla, I do a quick bow, because Valhalla reverb's my favourite. So, may the gods take you to Valhalla. And I'm like, yes, Valhalla reverb. So you could easily, if you wanted to drop the same plugins, you could copy and paste. So my copy and paste, for some reason, is not working on this computer. So I have to go and do it the long way, in case if you're like, why are you doing it like that? I don't know why. It does this. It just causes problems. Say you can copy and paste and drop these effects wherever you want to, and then drop them in the right chain. So this is the fab filter. I'm going to put this on the dry because I want to EQ it, and now it'll be in there with that. So you can create your rack that way, stack it, and do all this stuff. So yeah, I hope that has helped with some of the sound design. I think it'd be interesting to see what you've done with your version of your sound design. Maybe go to the jump up bass.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Let me remove stop screen, and let's put your version in. Let's see what you can do then.
The actually, just there's a question in chat from James Allen. He says, "Can you do this with free Melder bundle, or do you have to purchase a license?" you can do it, but the only limitation that it's got is that you can't use the multi-band feature, which I think is quite important, right?
Oh, that's the main part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say if you're going to invest in plugins, invest in Serum, invest in Melda, invest in a great reverb, you know, and use the same ones over and over. You don't need to have, you know, there's always someone saying, I prefer this one, but invest in the things that you're going to use over and over again. Like Moisten has a lot more plugins than I do. When I got my new laptop, stripped it down so that it literally ran like a Ferrari, and it's got, you know, 5 essential things in it that I'm going to use all the time. And that's it. But I use them every single time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I'd invest in Dada. I'd invest in you know, Sausage Fattener and Endless Smile. They're amazing. I'd invest definitely in the Melda stuff, and also Shaper Box. Right, the volume limiter that we use for side chaining and things like that. I think that's called Shaper Box. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, Shaper Box. Yeah.
Shaper Box. What else do I use non-stop? God.
The Fab filters are always a good
Fab
one.
filter, of course. Get the whole, get that whole thing. And then, Valhalla. That's it, really, for me. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, when you, like for me, I've bought plugins, I spent a load of money on a plugin. And to be honest, I always end up, just like you've actually seen from the Kick 2 to Serum, I always go back to Serum because I know it. And like, once you know something, then sort of maybe move on and learn another one, just like really get to know.
Yeah, you know, a good system is reward yourself when you've learned something fully. So don't buy another plugin until you know all the other ones backwards, forwards, inside. Then it's a treat and it's a reward, because they're expensive and you don't want to spend like £200-300 on a synth when, if you really learn how to make all your own sounds, you don't need all these other synths. It's all about sound design and just what's in your head, and just, you don't, honestly, you just need one. I don't care what anyone says. I can make any sound I want from the ground up using Serum. So that doesn't mean that anyone who's got like analog beautiful synths or blah is wrong. All I'm saying is, cost effective wise, and it makes you a better producer if you can do everything yourself, you know. And the Kick 2 is vital for the snap in the snares, but you could use Serum like you said, you know. So yeah, so show us how you made my jump up basses sound so good. I really like
so I've just thank you. I've just tried to take off a few of these things. Actually, to the core sound itself, I didn't actually do that much. I don't think I changed anything in Serum. If I did, it was simply just a change of the wavetable position on oscillator B. The effect's off, so there was nothing in there. And it sounded a little bit like this.
I'll just see what you've got going on in your chain there, and I'm looking. Yeah. See what he's got in his chain. If you remember, I did this on the bass. So I'm using Ableton in-house plugins here. And you could do what I just showed you with the rack and do this kind of stuff. See, I'm using distortion racks. This is all Ableton stuff. Multiple distortion racks and just a simple EQ.
Yeah, these guys here. Oh, no, not that one. Yeah. I think Ableton plugins are really... like, they're really versatile, and you can like use them for whatever it is that you want to do. You don't necessarily have to go and buy these third-party plugins because they are quite powerful. But a lot of them, like multi-band splitting and stuff, you do have to like create a rack, don't you? And then where you split the signal, do things to the signal, then bring it back together again.
Yeah, but Ableton's got a multi-band that you can make yourself, and it's got multiple multi-bands. If you go to the presets, you'll see that. So it's already got all of these plugins in. And the truth is, when I teach Ableton courses from beginning to end for people with my students, we don't use any third party. If I will not allow anyone to use anything third party until they've mastered Ableton, because then everything, they can go on a plugin and they're like, oh, I know how to do this. I know what an envelope is. I know what release is, attack, decay, all of this stuff, you know. But because every plugin is laid out differently and visually, it can be really overwhelming for someone who's trying to learn, right? Because they don't understand, well, what's an attack on this? Where's delay on it? And so you've got to understand what an envelope is, the fundamentals of attack, decay, release, sustain, and all those things before you move forward. So learn it on Ableton or the DAW that you're using first. I don't want to be DAWist. And make sure that you learn that before you reward yourself with the joys of plugins.
Yeah, so the jump up bass. it sounded like this.
Oh, so you just kept the same stuff that I put on it, so there's nothing on there?
Yeah, I kept the same. I think the sound was
Cool.
like really solid. I feel like it was like it conveyed what it was trying to do.
So really, all you changed was on the serum was that little bit on here, yeah?
Yeah, literally, it was just a case of, I think it was here. So
Yeah, it was.
yeah, and all that did was just dull it down just a little bit, because I knew in my head that we were going to put Wave Shaper on it and sort of push and accentuate things.
And have you done that? Have you done that on here? Oh, look, have you done that? Have you done that?
Yeah.
I'm all excited.
Yeah, so I started off with that, and I thought, okay, great. Obviously, it was all shaved off with the low end, so I sort of incorporated a sub by itself to give it a bit of weight, which is not playing now. Bear with me.
Yeah. And let me look at some of that. All right, I'll let you figure that out for a second. I'll look at some of the questions. There's a good amount of new ideas, and music will always progress. Yep. Dean is saying good vibes. Thanks, Dean. Mass respect. Christopher Grantham. Hello, Mr. Chase. Still some. Okay, so part of the parents could use sample pots and pans in your kitchen. You know what? One of the lessons I have for my students is it's a really fun lesson. We take keys, our nails, whatever it is, and we make a track just using a mic and our sounds from our mouth and whatever. It's incredible the amount of sounds you can make by recording. And when he said pots and pans, he's not actually being funny. He's got a good point. You can make all your own sounds with a little mic. You can go outdoors and record birds, ambient sounds, all stuff that will help you create that intro, that vibe, that concept that you're looking for. You want to make a track that's all about being in the jungle, then go out and get some sounds that you could make as an atmosphere or layer. Or if you're making a techno industrial track, then get some of those pots and pans and get that industrial tink tink sort of sound. I mean, that stuff's really useful. And whilst Josh is figuring that out, I'm going to just drop the link again for the door for the last one, which is next Tuesday, guys. So if you'd like us to continue, fill out that questionnaire that we put. You pinned it, didn't you?
Yeah, pinned on Twitch, and I'll paste it again in
How do you
YouTube.
pin it in here? It's annoying. I want to know how to do it.
So yeah,
Anyway.
regarding the field recording things, actually here is a great example of a field recorder. It's a Zoom H4n. You can record literally anything, just point it. It's a direction focused mic, so you can sort of like point it towards anything, including farts if you wanted to. And yeah, you can sample it. I've actually sampled my dog in a release that's coming soon.
Okay.
So yeah,
what?
barking. She's barking at the door.
Oh,
Someone
I
knocks
thought
on
you
the
were going
door.
to say you've sampled your dog. Never mind. Okay. It's like, that's just gross. Such a guy. Okay.
Yeah, it is a
have we
guy
had any,
thing.
Yeah. Have we had any?
Yeah.
hide
Yeah,
behind-
so the sub that I put underneath this was literally a sine wave. Just nice and constant, and it layered under it and made it sound like this.
sounds bad.
So I felt like with that, the sub and the like oscillating bass that we've got didn't quite have as much impact as I thought. I felt like it wanted. So I just grouped them together into a little subgroup, if you like, called Alert Bass. And then what we did is went on to, I'll tell you what, I can recreate this. So I could duplicate that, set this one to default and turn this one off. And we could do it again. So 3 bands in the usual way, so we've got control over each of the frequency spectrums. And just have a listen, and yeah, awesome. So looking at that, it feels like it does need a little bit more weight in the low end. So sort of highlight the low end, make sure that's selected, fully dry wet, and just sort of boost the volume with a nice smooth curve. Yeah, it just
Blow
pushes
people's
it.
ears off. Yeah, give them a heart attack on the stage. That's great. Love it.
That's the aim. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So in the mid-range, again, mid-range is always something to be really careful of with bass, because a lot of musical things, the snare, the kick, what else? Anything like that, any expression of the sound always sits in the mid-range. So tend to try and sort of pull that volume down and, just sort of work it in easily. So like Rap said, this is where all the action's happening, where you can see this line that's oscillating, and we just sort of go to it and play around with the settings until we get a sound that sounds good. So yeah, that's really pulsating, so on a system that would feel quite good. Cool.
Wow, nice. Cool.
And then with the high end, I feel as though that it loses presence, so you can't. It feels like it's sort of sitting right back in the mix if you have a quick listen. And if I did it with the drums, you'll notice that the drums then all of a sudden appear so far forward, it's kind of not quite sitting right. If the drums play. So to combat that, obviously you just get the higher end and sort of like push the volume of it into the mix a little bit.
One of the things I think is really important, next time you go clubbing, when you go outside of the club sort of and you can hear the sub bass outside the room where the actual DJ is playing, you can hear the sub and you'll be able to just focus as producers now and not as ravers for a second. When you go there, just listen and you'll hear that hum and how it's cutting through. And it's all about the sub bass, drum and bass. It's all about the sub bass. It's a silent thing that's a foundation that makes every track fat. You've got all these different bass lines, but there's always a fat sub underneath, and there's most of the time there's a fat sub underneath, or the sound has a fat sub in it, but there's always sub bass. And if you listen to that, you'll hear it if you stand outside the room, you'll really hear that fundamental sine wave. It's kind of interesting experiment. I don't know. Yeah,
definitely. The thing to remember as well with most of production, if you want something, if we think about you being in a cave as a Neanderthal, because it's all about your brain interpreting sounds, right? If you're in a cave and you hear this big boom and it's like echoey, reverby, shakes the room, you know for a fact that there's something really big in that cave that's coming towards you. So if we break it down and you think about it, how do we know that it's something big? We've not seen anything. It's because it's got that low rumble that shakes you. So if you take that theory into music and you have, so for example, if you have just this higher bass with no low end, it doesn't really sound like it's heavy. It's not really a heavy component, but as soon as you add that sub bass to give it some rumble,
get that Jurassic Park moment, that one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same with like most things. Like if you have any sound that you think, well, I really want a heavy sound, then you've got to try and incorporate that sub bass with it to make it a lot more weighty.
Right.
Yeah, I speak in metaphors a lot.
So is that pretty much it for the bass, what you'd say, or is there more there?
No, that's pretty much it for that bass.
I'm just curious to see what you did with the Reese bass. Is it the same thing? I'm just curious to see, because we both worked on it. I'm just wondering what plugins you've got in your chain that you use. Yeah, sure. Oh yeah,
so
you've got the
sounds like
fab
this.
filter, wave shaper. You've got the limiter, and what's at the end there? I can't see.
That's fab filter again.
So you EQ'd it again afterwards at some final adjustments. So explain why you put another EQ and didn't just use the same one to everybody, so they can,
Yeah, sure. So obviously the sound of the Reese was, I've changed the notes. Actually, I've got the same notes over here.
Don't worry about that. It's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So the higher notes, obviously straight away it's like, yeah, nice Reese. Same situation as Rap actually. scoop the middles. It's quite an important part. And then wave shape to bring the sound up. A little bit of a limiter to protect because things start getting a little bit spicy. And then it was a Pro Q3 just on the end, just to make sure there was no low end interfering, and a little scoop here because just above 1K the second fundamental of the snare was hitting, so just a tiny little dip out there just to really emphasize the snare.
Sometimes I get in the habit of putting just an EQA at the very end of my chain before the utility, just to make sure that, because I've added effects and things onto that, you know, that chain that's happening, I just make sure to shave the bass off again where it needs to be shaved, just to make sure, because those frequencies are adding, all those plugins are adding their own hum, they're adding their own little vibe to it. It's called coloring, right? So you could just add a compressor and not turn any of the parameters on a compressor on in Ableton, and it will, just by turning it on, will make the sound a little bit different. And that's called coloring, where you don't actually move the parameters or turn it full dry, where you just turn the plugin on, and it's called coloring because it just adds a little bit of a vibe to a sound. It's quite interesting. Okay, so we've got about half an hour left. It would take too long to create an intro for this tune. We'll come back to this, but I think maybe it'd be good to talk about some intro elements and how I create intro elements and things like that, because we've done a lot of focus on the drums and on the basses, and hopefully you understand now a bit of the sound design. So let's take a look at what it takes, because I think people don't realize, what does it take? When do you know your track's finished? How many elements should be in the intro? How much stuff should you put in? Every producer is different. Would you take that limiter out before mastering? Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Always take your limiters off before mastering. Everything is just to keep the track, because if it sounds great with the limiters on, it will never distort once you. So you just take all your limiters off, just deactivate them, and then you'll export your stems that way. You know. So let's talk a little bit about. I'm going to remove your screen, and let's talk a little bit. I think I'll open up the Kate Bush track that I did, and maybe go through what it actually takes to build an intro and what I do to start with. And I remember this will be the basic before EQing, before mixing, and all of that stuff. So let's open this section up. Concept present. Okay. So I'll just play a little bit of this track to familiarize yourself with it. Bear with me. Kick so loud. Okay, so that is the session that I did before it was mixed. This is the demo, right, that you're looking at right here. So this is the demo. Nothing's mixed, nothing's EQ'd, no sound design, very little. And I just want to show you about building your track. Like, this got a very long drop, and I like huge anthemic intros filled with all kinds of trippiness. That's my vibe. That's my style. You know, you can have whatever style you want, right? That's all up to you. Let's close some things here. We've got a lot going on. This is a big session. There's a lot. It took a while. It took 3 or 4 goes to get this right. And I often take 3 or 4, 5, 6 different sittings before I actually am happy with the tune. I've been working on something else that I only nailed, I think, just the day before last, that I've been working on for about, 4 months, Moist, when I first played it to the bass line
yeah, 4
idea I
months.
had. So, you know, I'll go back to a tune, come back. This one took a while, but I was under the gun because I wanted to get it ready because everyone was into Stranger Things and stuff. So let's take a look section by section at what you need to put in an intro, because I think a lot of people have asked me, like, how do you know when something's ready? How do I know what elements you need? And, you know, one of the things that Moisen had taught me back in the day was, you know, come up with a concept, right? So if you're doing a jungle tune, then find little sounds that will match. If you're doing a tune about, you know, gangsters, find little gunshots or whatever the point is. Like, think of an idea for your song. So for this, we knew it was Stranger Things, and I knew it had to be a bit weird and trippy, but I also wanted to keep all the Kate Bush brilliant stuff that Kate Bush had done in there. So that theme, that the dum dum dum, that's a huge, it's too low, but that's a huge hook in her song, and I wanted to make that a synthesizer and make that good. But let's look at what you need to start with this intro firstly. And I'm gonna just, was that loud for everybody or felt quiet for me?
I think it was good for me.
Was it? All right, okay. So I'm gonna cut out the drums, the sub bass, melodies, vocals, and we're going to look at just the effects, just to give you guys an idea. And the effects are in white here if you want to enlarge your screen and see it, but basically the effects are all of this. And as you can see, I use an awful lot of effects. These are just effects that went into maybe I went overboard, but for me this is what it takes. And we'll go up to bar 25, the build up. So you can see that I've used all of these effects in here. And I'll just show you what I did with these effects. One thing you can do when you're exporting these, you don't want to export a million stems to the guy doing the mastering. Or if you're doing, let's say you export your mastering and outsource it like I do, right? You can, if you get really good at mixing and you get levels that you like, then I do this with my vocal stems. I group them as one stem and bounce them out as one stem, but only when I'm 100% sure I've EQ'd them the way I want, each and every stem. I've treated each vocal track the way I want to treat it, and the mix is perfect on the vocals, because I don't like other people messing with my vocal stems. I like it the way I hear it is how I want it to come out on the record. So I will often group all of my vocal stems and send them and export them as one stem for the person to just drop, and I'll just say, don't mess with that, please, just leave it in there. I mean, he may do a tiny bit of EQing, but if I've done the sculpting and the work, you can do that as well. And then you can just export your stems like 4 stems, or your drum, well, you know, your vocals as one, your effects as one. It's not a good idea to, I do it with vocals, but it's not a good idea to really do that with everything, but you could do that. Drums you want to send separately. But, you know, I've had people give me stems and they've literally sent me 4 groups. Here's your basses, here's your drums, here's your blind, remix it. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to use the drums anyway or the bass. I'm going to do my own thing. So, yeah, that's fine. So, you know, depends if someone's remixing your work or if they're individually mastering. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things we've got and why I've put them in there. Rises are a huge part of everything. And if you look, you could see on each sound here, basically, if I just solo it, if you'll notice on the EQ8, I've not bothered doing any serious sound design or anything to this stuff, or putting Q3s. But basically, if you notice, what I'm doing here is I'm making sure to shave some of that end highs off so that the hats and things can come through, the sibilance, which is around, you've got your like 10K, which is all your sibilance, 1K is sort of your vocals and your synths and stuff. And unless and sometimes they interchange, but typically that's where everything is. So I shaved off some highs because I don't need that coming through and interfering in the mix when it's mastered. And then I've definitely shaved off any lows. And you can simply just drag back and forth until you hear it. So if you listen to that rumble, we don't need it. We only need like, you know, the littlest bit of it, and that's it. So going through every sound and sculpturing it, I've done nothing else. I've put some reverb on it, and probably what I will go through, and I know what I did on the final mix of this. I wanted to pull up the very first demo, but on the final mix, I'd have gone in and probably created racks and put the effects underneath rather than on top. But this is just so that I can get a vibe and get going. But this is also acceptable, and then you can put another key EQ after the Valhalla and EQ that. But I prefer to create a rack, put a dry chain, then put Valhalla as another chain and drop an EQ on that chain. So every effect is being sculpted and EQ'd as you go along. But again, because I'm lazy, I start off like this. And then I have a session where I'm like, right, it's time to tidy up your session, pull everything down, do a good mix, put the limiters on. And so I don't do any of that work, as you know, until I'm really happy with the vibe of the track. I have to like it before I'm going to commit to this relationship. Barely say the word. So there you go. So we're going to go through a couple of others and see what I've done, see if it's the same sort of thing. This looks like it's the same kind of thing. It's another riser, yet another one. It's the same. Shimmers. If you look, it's the same thing. I'm just cutting off the bottoms, cutting off the tops. Same thing here. So here, for some reason, I've gone in with a Pro Q3. Let's look why and find out what needed a bit more, because it's a much more detailed parametric EQ. So let's find out what I did to that and why we went deep in on it. Alrighty. So again, it's shaving off the bottom and shaving off the top. I've basically done the same, but for some reason I've used a Pro Q. And probably because I'm going to use this in a rack is what I've done. I've started to use this and gone, all right, I'll drop this in a rack here. But you can see I've shaved this sound off. It's quite sharp. And if you just hold on, you can see those peaks. And what's great about this, and this is why I've used it, is you can drag the peaks down if you just hold on it and play. You know, so that's pretty cool that you can do that and affect all the peaks and things like that. Oh, that's not a good peak. But look, you've got them all here. Drag them down, get rid of the peaks that are annoying, etc., 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 right? So it's pretty good to do that. I'm just literally showing you the sort of sounds. There'll be lots of risers and things like that. Again, same thing, no EQing except for just rolling off the end and just putting these sounds in place because it needs them. When I take these sounds off, I always listen, does it need that? And then get rid of it and A-B it. And I go, okay, I didn't really notice a difference. Well, then you don't need the sound. So, you know, believe me, I've gone through that process with this track. Let's see. Again, same thing. Same thing. This, one of the things I like to do is always reverse my crash cymbals. So if you've got a cymbal like this, take it here, and then simply use this section here and go ahead and reverse it and drop it into this one. Let me just make it a bit bigger. Drop it into the front end of it, you know, match it up, do whatever you need to do. And then basically you've got some nice reverses going in. And if you pitch one lower than the, let me just take that fade off for a second. If you pitch the, if you pitch one higher and lower, it will be different. So you could pitch this a little bit higher here, for example. So that one's different. And then it goes, so just create a bunch of effects for yourself. I mean, God, it's so easy to create your own sounds. Why wouldn't you? You know, I mean, this is just reverb. Just a little bit of a reverb at the end of a kick. So you can have a kick, right? Fill it out with Valhalla. Oh, bow. And then you can basically take the bass end off that. And now you've got these beautiful effects that are yours. You know what I mean? It's easy to make your own effects. Super easy. Also in Sampler, you can make your own effects and all the Ableton tools. There's so many. Oh, my God, so many. So many ways you can make effect. In fact, I had a music school in LA called MTC, Music Tech Collective. And if you go and search Music Tech Collective on YouTube, you'll see hundreds of videos that I did for like 3 years. It was all when I was doing the Ableton 9 course, and it shows you all this stuff. But yeah, just worth noting, right? Let's see if there's anything else here worth looking at. So this particular sound, wherever it is, I've obviously gone to a little bit more trouble with the EQing. Let's just have a listen to why. And if we listen to this section here without any of the EQing, it's just muddy. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but it's a huge difference. We've got rid of all that low frequency. And a good way to tell if you haven't EQ'd something properly and got rid of the bottom end is to stick a filter on that channel, and you'll be able to hear all the bottom end. Do you ever do that, Josh?
Yeah, look, great addition to that is like even if you can't hear it, but there is like a slight signal that's there, all of that with many elements can just add up, can't it, and create that muddy mix. And yeah. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, don't want to do that. So if we take the EQ off and we just play this section, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Let's put this and bump it up really loud. Not too loud, hopefully, but can you hear all that muffle and noise? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But the point is, it's just an example of showing you those frequencies exist. Just because we can't hear them doesn't mean they're not there. You know, so right, okay. So now we've got all these effects and we've got them sort of balanced correctly. That's great. The next thing I would go into probably is my vocals. And my vocals, I take a lot of time to EQ them, and I do a lot of parallel effect processing, which means I'll have the dry vocal, then I'll have the affected vocals on the top. But that's just with the vocals. That's the way I like to work. You can see here I've got a rack going, audio effect rack. I've got my reverb in the second chain, in the second underneath the dry chain, and you know, then I'm doing whatever I want to do. Endless Smile is just another plugin that basically from Dada, it's amazing, and it gives you this sort of like riser kind of effect with your vocals, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look. A section here, and let's just turn on the vocals. Let's make sure our effects are off. Okay, and we're going to solo this vocal here. Now, normally, cool. I would do fades and get rid of those little pops, but I wanted that effect on here, so I left it on there. But you can certainly go through and fade it. So you can mute out your reverb. And one of the things you want to make sure you want to do with vocals, I don't know if I did this in the early stages of this, but tiny, yeah, I did. Look, you can see tiny little fades will get rid of those pops at the beginning and the ends of your vocals. You want to do a little fade on every single vocal, man, every single bit of it. Like any time of sense, because we go st, and there's a very heavy accent on a vocal. So you want to just smooth that out ever so slightly. It's almost unnoticeable, but it makes a huge difference to your mix. Now this vocal I got it off the internet, and it came with these artifacts in it and these delays in it. So there's not much I could do because I wanted to use the original vocal. I didn't want to have someone re-sing it. But yeah, so you have to work with what you work with, right? And then all the other effects with the vocals are just let's see if we can find a section. So really drowned out underneath another rack with more reverbs, and I put my delays and my echoes on separate channels, and I keep them all separate. That main vocal lives on its own channel. Nothing else should interfere with that. So yeah, a lot of work goes into the vocals. If you've got any other questions about vocals, I mean, let me know. The next section we have here is our melodies. And the melodies, this is where I will admit, I'm a keyboard player, so you know it's handy. I can do that. But you know, I wanted to recreate. I'm just going to mute out the effects. So what I've done here, if we solo one and take a look, we've got Serum basically playing the notes that I've played, and then I'm doubling that, as you can see, with different serums and different synths on the top. It's all Serum, but the point is different sounds, presets, whatever I decide to make. So this slow one here, these are the chords I've played. And then let's take a look at Serum. Oh, my mouse is all over the place. Stop. Calm down. Do you have a question, Josh?
Yeah, there's a quick question from James Allen. He says, does that make the track a bootleg? And I'm assuming he means because of the vocals not being re-sung.
Yeah, this is a mashup, bootleg, whatever you want. It's a bootleg, definitely. It's a remix, but you can't sell it. It can't be sold because it's not re-recorded. If you re-recorded this with a singer and you asked permission, you'd have to get permission still. But I did ask permission, and it would have cost me about 30, 40, 50 grand to have re-recorded this. And I just thought that wasn't worth it in the end. More power to Kate. I think she deserves every penny. She's a phenomenal artist. But, you know, so yeah. You could put this. The reason these are great for people is because you can use this to get, like, this got 53,000 views on my YouTube channel. It's a great way to introduce people to your YouTube channel. It's a great way to do things like this for giveaways. Like I gave it away, everyone could download it. It's a great way to remind everyone you're not dead. You know, that you're a good producer and you can produce just as good as everyone else, which is kind of my at people who are like, oh, you only make jungle. So yeah, I mean, use it however you want, but you can't sell it. No. If you wanted to recreate it, like Dope Ammo does that a lot, you have to approach a publisher, you have to get it licensed, and you have to re-record the whole thing. So yeah, if you look, it's a very simple preset that I've used on here, basically to create that one layer, and then I've gone through and just layered that with another layer, and then another layer, and then another layer. So same thing on this channel. Much lower cello vibes, and then on this channel, and I put an arpeggiator on this channel, and then this channel a high. So all of that just to make the pads.
Beautiful pads.
Thank you. And again, no EQing done on this. I don't think I did. I might have done some EQing on the group, but I don't think I did. Oh yeah, I did. Oh, okay. So what I've done is on the group, I mean, I did this ages ago, I won't remember. Here's what I did to get that arpeggiated sound. I've used the LFO tool. So if you look here, you pull it down from the monitor.
It's always really interesting when you go back to an old tune that you made a while ago, and you notice things that you used to do, you notice things that you wouldn't do now, or you notice things that you want to go back to, and then you're trying to remember where everything is. It's always really, it's a blast from the past for me anyway. Whenever I look over my old tunes, it feels nice.
It's a right old trip down memory lane, this one. So, you know, I've put the effects on because I like the way the pads sound. I decided to put the effects on the group, obviously, because I thought that's what I'm going to do. So I put a limiter on there. I didn't EQ it. And I've put the LFO tool, which is giving us this nice, if I take it off, a nice sort of side chain. And the LFO tool's awesome. I mean, it's got some great presets. Literally just go through the presets, and let's see if I can just find it here. Hold on a minute. LFO. This is a Steve Dudar.
Good old Steve Duda.
Who's just a genius. I mean, he created Serum. It's his baby. You know, guys, and this is one of the other two, and also Cthulhu is also part of one of the great, I mean, I never use that because I use my own chords in my head, but it's a really great synth. But yeah, you can go to the presets, you can go to sidechain, pick your side chains, and then you can just, you know, scroll through them, whichever ones you want. create different points, and it's a wonderful, it's actually kind of fun effect. If I turn off the one we have on here and just play around with this, and you could get some mad sounds just by going through. But you can understand, you could just play around and find some really cool sounds just by doing things like this. Pretty cool. So I'll get rid of that. But yeah, so putting all your effects on a group is acceptable as well. It's a pain in the bottom when it comes to exporting your stems. So I only do this when I'm sure that I'm going to export those pads as one stem. I'm not going to do export this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. I'm going to export them all as one stem. So that's where the mixing does come in. I mean, I don't master, but I do mix everything to make sure I like it. Okay, what else we have here? So that's the pads. We've got, what's this going on in this channel? It's always interesting to see what I've done. Okay, it's probably a sound effect from, oh no, it's from Serum. I made it and then I bounced it. I see what I've done. Okay, so yeah, these are just sound effects and things that I'm adding. But the thing is, you've got to add sound. It's not just, there's a lot that goes into a track like this. It's not just, this is a horn sound. And you can see I've done quite a lot of work to make this sound good already. Filters opening up on it. It's got an LFO tool. I've EQ'd it quite a lot. It's got sausage on there. Because this is the main hook of her song. That da, 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 right? I've got a frog in my throat. And a lot of things are pulsing and arpeggiated because that's the tune, the whole vibe of it. I want it to be anthemic and just growing constantly and getting bigger and bigger. So, all right. So we've got the horn there. We've got a layer here. Don't know what this is. I froze. Oh yeah, this. What's that? It's push button. These are just little Foley sounds that I've made, frozen and put in the track, basically. And they're just creating vibe, a little bit of grit, a little bit of buzz, things like that. I want you to hear it without it and then hear it with. You may think that might be, what's the point of that sound? But listen to it with. I would take it off. It's a huge difference. So pull the volume down. It just adds that tiny little bit. And you've got to remember, when you're in a massive club, that these sounds will resonate and come through.
Yeah, there is one thing I was really, really excited about taking a deep dive into this with you, because I attribute to the tune. It's got such an amount of tension, such an amount of presence, and it seems to me that it's all of these little tiny intricate details that just make it so exciting and vibrant. And it's, yeah, hats off to you, really.
It's just like the government's advert on how to save electricity. All these little things add up. So, yeah, I mean, they do that. They all add up. They're on their own. They don't sound significant. But the Foley, the little bit of grit that you find, that. Ah, I've gone to town on this sound. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a sound. I've put it in sampler and I've started messing around with things. And, you know, just to how much time have we got left? We've got like probably...
It's 5 to 9.
5 to 9 already. Where's the time go? We'll continue with this for the last one, I think, for next week, probably. We'll see. We'll decide. But sampler is amazing if you've got a sound and you just want to bring something in from Splice and just mess with it and loop it. You can get all these amazing sounds. I tell you what, sampler is one of the best things in Ableton. You can do so much with it. Let's see if there's anything else here that's important. What's this one? Okay, I'll give you an example, right? Let's take that. Let's put a sampler in and just see what we can do with it. Just for fun. Because, I don't know, I don't care if it's crap or good, but let's just have a bit of fun with it and see what we can do. What am I looking for? Can't multitask. Instruments, sampler. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take this sound, drop it in sampler, right? So I'm just going to go to the right channel, would help. And
there's a question in chat from QWL Music. He just asked, do you bus or group the melodics together too?
Do I bus or group the melodics together? Everything will end up like the very first Open the Door part 1 that I showed you. Everything will end up in its own group. Synths will be in groups. Is that the question? Synths will be in groups. Everything will be. I'm making sure I'm answering your question because my mind's on the sampler right now. But yeah, if you look here, everything is in groups. Melodies, vocals, effects, final drums, sub bass is on its own, and then bass, and then I've got everything in the pre-master group. So it all looks like that at the end of the day. Let me finish off with this, and then we can get to your questions, which there are many always. So where am I? Right, here we are, sampler. I'm going to, real quick, just turn up the volume of this. Okay, so you could say, okay, well, I want to make, you know, a sound out of a part of this. And you just basically, or you could loop a sound, or you could just, you know, just find a little bit that you like and make something. Let's loop it forward. I like that reverse. And then you could sample that, EQ that, and now you've got a whole different vibe. Do you know what I mean? Or you could take, and one of the things that's great about sampler is for making those time stretchy noises. They're really great. And I think maybe we could, I don't know if we have enough time to do that right now, but you could, let's see, let's grab vocals. Let's just grab a, I don't know, let's just grab this and put this in there. So we've got Kate's vocal now.
Baseline territory.
So childish. God, I haven't done this for years. But basically, if you go to your filters, you've got an aux envelope. Modulation, you've got an aux envelope here, not your filters, your aux. Turn that on, and you can start to mess around with time stretching and doing some crazy stuff with this granular sort of vibe, because that's what this is really. And you go back to your sample and you start to mess with the beginning and oh wait, hold on, you need to assign these channels. My mic's in the way, I can't see. But you want to assign, maybe go to loop start and turn that up, whatever, and let's see if we can start to play around with stuff. But you can start to create like little samples and effects just by playing with the sampler. It's really, really cool. And you can understand, you start to create those like really nice sort of jungle vibes. You could do this with anything, with a synth. So like we're running up that road, and you could do a million things. I love that effect. It's so much fun. It really is. It's a really good fun effect to play around with. And you just have to play around with it in here and make sure you've got... play around with the different vibes of what you can... and then mess around, resample it. Do whatever you want, but it's just a lot of fun to play with this. I think we should probably stop the production and get into questions, because we want to answer people's questions. I don't want to forget about their questions. But we can certainly pick up from this next week. Stop screen. Sounds good. And hopefully, my brain's starting to go... hopefully we can... Hopefully you've had a bit of fun watching some of this stuff. I mean, hopefully it was good, you know? All right, have we got any questions? And it's definitely an instant kickoff too. Let me see, it's lost. Yeah. Do you want to kick off with some of the questions first?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got Jed, who's asked, where is sidechain applicable?
Ah, that's good.
I think sidechain is applicable if you think about it in the way of like, if you want a sound to be out of the way, then yes, use sidechain. But in the conventional method, it'll be bass lines to get out of the way of the kick. It'll be really strong, like Reese's and stuff. You can sidechain using the snare. I think we mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could sidechain it to the snare to get that out of the way and really make it pop through the mix. Really, sidechain is just a tool to use if you want something to be accentuated, then sidechain something else to it.
And also it can be used as a ducking effect. Sometimes if you think of around the world, tracks like that.
Daft Punk.
And, Daft Punk, obviously, and where they use side chaining in such an obviously it's got that whoop, 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 sort of proper pushing it up, so it's an effect, not just its purpose is to create an effect. That filtered sound in house, it's all about the side chain. So okay, we've got another question. How do you know when your track is finished? By Amy R. Okay. Well, it's never finished, but you do get to a point where you realize it's finished. And I think it's, especially when you have perspective from your tracks and you work the way I do, which is not trying to finish a whole track in one day, but doing as much as you can, 5 hours, then leaving it alone, coming back to it a week later, working on other tracks in between and giving it that space it needs so that you can come back until the pennies drop and you go, I found the hook of this song. I did this yesterday with a track I was working on. I was saying earlier, like I found the hook and the penny finally dropped for this track, and I've been working on it for 4 months. But as you can see, some producers don't put a lot of sounds in their tracks. Other producers like me do put a lot of sounds in there. I like my tracks to sound very, very full. If you put too many sounds, you can also run into the danger of your track being a bit quieter because everything's demanding space. So the sounds that you put, they really do have to be the right sounds. And the right frequencies, otherwise you're just filling it up with crap. So a good way to tell if you've got too many things is do what I did when I said, listen to this without that sound, now listen to it with. If you don't notice a difference, get rid of the thing. It made no difference. So when it's finished is when it's arranged, when you've got all the sounds. And the best way to test if your track is finished is to bounce it with a limiter so it's a bit crunchy, get on your decks, and then play your favourite Bunchen track or someone you know is just really, really good. And does it mix in well and does it stand up? If it doesn't stand up to that track, it's either not good enough or it sounds bare, then you know you've got work to do. But if you play it and you go, you know what? I'm on a little vibe here, then you're probably ready to send that off for mastering. What would you say, Moisen?
Yeah, I think if you're ever at the stage of your track where you're like near the end and you're feeling like, I don't know if it's done yet or not, but I might get it mastered, when you're sort of unsure, is just to leave it, walk away, or mix with it, leave it, put it on your USB, leave it on your USB whenever you're playing, whenever you're mixing, whatever you're doing, bring it up every now and again. And over time you'll think to yourself, okay, I'm going to add these elements, or then you'll think, all right, it's done. I'll send it to mastering.
The two biggest things that changed my life as a producer, and is the reason I'm making better tracks now than I've ever made, is giving my tracks space and perspective and not trying to finish them and listening back to them in a week, a month. That's the one thing. And playing the track after I've made it, jumping from this end of the room to the other and just testing it out and seeing if it's mix friendly, if it's arranged correctly, if it's all that stuff. Those are the two biggest things that changed my production and my whole life. Why can't I access wave shaper settings, Atkins? I think we showed you that, so just watch this, but basically it looks like you're not going to, I bet you've just pulled the plugin up and you're not seeing the same interface we're seeing, so you've got to click edit and then you'll see that red screen, then you've got to right click within that red screen and then the multi-band, it'll give you a menu of how many bands do you want and what you want to do, so I would do that. Do you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so that's from James Green. It's like a double-barreled question. He's got two, but the first one is, what is compression for? For me, I actually rarely use compression. I actually use limiters quite a lot, which is a form of harsh compression.
Yeah.
But in essence, compression is to lower dynamics of sounds. So what really it does is it lowers the higher parts and also brings up the lower parts to make the signal. So if you imagine a kick in like a triangle shape that we see, if you compress it, you can do it extreme and you can make it into a sausage.
Yeah. If you imagine, I've got a great way of explaining this. If you imagine you're at a bar and you know how there's a group of you and you all want to do shots, right? And there's all the little glasses and the guy just pours and just does that straight pour. Like, what was that film where the girl was like dancing on the thing? Anyway, you pour it and it's all straight. You'll notice all the drinks are the same. That's basically it. It's just making everything the same. It's compressing the high frequencies and it's just making it. And a great way to see what compression does is if you pull up, I can do this in a second. Well, why don't we just do it? I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
give me a second and you can get a kick, an 808, put it in your DAW, and then basically put a compressor on it and you'll see the shape change from just like, it'll have it to becoming just, it'll even out the end of the bass to, so if you had an 808 bass, for example, right, and you put compression on it, instead of it going boo and being quiet at the end, it will simply make it go boo and keep the end just as loud as the beginning. And so it will even out the sound. Like Moisen said, it will turn it into a more of an even sound. So you can see that visually represented, which is really cool. People confuse that and say it just makes things louder. It really doesn't. It's actually making things quieter, which is why you often need the makeup gain to make things louder. What's the second part of this question?
Coyote Ugly, was it?
Coyote, that's the one.
Aim and Break Cartel. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the one. Thanks for that. That would have driven me mad.
Yeah, the second part is what does a transient shaper do?
Ooh.
It's the opposite. It's literally the opposite. So if you think you have a sausage sound and you use a transient shaper with like a high attack, it sort of picks that end up and it makes it into the triangle sound that we're talking about. It accentuates the start of the sound.
Cool. I don't really use any transient shapers. I used to in my old laptop. I had a beautiful, I can't remember what the plugin was, and it was really nice, especially on arpeggiators. It worked really, really great. But again, you can do it yourself. I couldn't have loved it that much. I didn't buy it again and put it in this computer. Let's see. Do I need all of the social media platforms, and do I need to show my face? Spend more. Oh, dude, I hate, this is such a difficult question because I have such a love-hate relationship with social media. I can't bear it. It's the thing I hate doing the most, but I have to do it, and you have to do it if you want to get eyes on you. Each social media platform, all right, if I take this one?
Of course.
Yeah, each social media platform is different from the other one. For me, Facebook is for older people. It's great if you want to run ads. It's got still millions of people involved in the world watch Facebook. So it's great to get lots of eyes on you, but it's for an older person. Instagram is more for, it's almost like cooler, younger, I'm in Dubai, sort of influencers, whereas TikTok is more real. It's more about like not having filters and just getting down to the nitty gritty of stuff. YouTube is more like tutorial, and YouTube shorts are really informative and they're quite, blah, blah, blah. And so to me, each one is highly individual, and I don't do the same post for every single one. I will cater them differently. In fact, my alarm went off earlier saying I'm supposed to do my post for TikTok because I have them all ready and I just schedule my posts ahead of time and just pop them in. But I definitely think you've got to look at the platform, look at what is needed on each platform, study it. Like before I started posting on TikTok, I actually watched TikTok, and now I'm addicted to TikTok. I do love TikTok, but and YouTube Shorts from just disappear down. That's why you'll see in my stories like at 2 or 3 in the morning, suddenly funny TikTok memes appear. Yeah, like weird stuff. But yes, you do need all the social media platforms because it's like fishing. If I throw a very small net into the ocean, I'm only going to catch maybe sardines, right? But if I throw a massive net into the ocean, and I hate that people do this, you'll catch some sharks, you'll get a wider audience, right? So it's better to be on all the platforms and work them. I'd probably do the same post for Facebook and Instagram. Maybe change the wording a little bit differently. TikTok, a completely different post. YouTube, I'd do the shorts because they're great. And you can look at the analytics and you can see what's working. Right now, I'm very upset with TikTok because I was getting like 2,000-3,000 views per post, and now I'm getting like 3 or 4. And what they've done is they've pushed their posts out over a longer period of time, so people keep seeing them, and then they gradually build. But that doesn't really help me. So I'm all about YouTube Shorts right now. They're getting a lot of traffic, and you can schedule your posts. Spend 1 day creating them all. Spend another day scheduling them all, and then forget it for the month. You're free, Do do I need to show my face? No, you don't. You can come up with inventive ways not to show your face. There's a great guy on TikTok called, what's he called?
Sick Kick.
Sick Kick, that's it. And he wears a mask. He doesn't show his face. Or you could do it with animation, or you could do it with avatars, or you could come up with... It's your marketing, it's your brand. You've got to figure out, what you want to do and do it that way. I've done different projects on social media, and it's like that some have worked, some have failed, and you just see what works. So hopefully that answers that question. Why don't you do the... Oh, no, I'll take... I like that. Which one do you want to do next?
Yeah, you do this next one if you want.
Well, no, you start it and I'll finish it. How about that?
Okay, cool. Just a little bit of I'll actually just add on to the one that you just did, if that's all right. I've found myself in a bit of a sticky situation with social media where, because I noticed a comment in the chat, where I was looking at it and I was sort of laying in bed as I went to bed, and I thought, oh, why are all these people so successful and I'm here doing this? And it actually started to get to me quite a bit. But I think that it's about changing your mindset with it and making sure that your mindset's comfortable and safe and you understand about it, and then you can then use it to your advantage, basically. I think that's quite an important thing to just think about, at least.
The problem with social media is if you don't get the instant likes and you don't get so many, it can be really disheartening, and it can be sad because you're like, I'm working really hard and why isn't anyone? So you sort of got to do it, trust that it's doing its thing, and then sort of ignore it, not care about it. It's almost like you've got to do it but not care about it. It's a weird thing. I mean, I've got to a point now where I just post when I have something to tell people, but likes don't pay the bills. I don't need validation that way. If I could do this without doing any social media, I would, but you need social media. How do I tell you guys what's happening tonight? And this is the beauty of social media, is we can do something like this. It's all different stuff. Go ahead with the next one.
Yep. Yes, the next one's from Craig. Says, I keep getting ignored by labels. What should I do about this?
Stop stalking them.
Yeah. For me, I did find that this was the case to start with, and I thought it was a reflection on how I was or what I was doing. And I think that what changed that for me is actually interact with the label a little bit rather than just sort of dropping an MP3 in their inbox, for example. You're more likely to get ignored for that kind of thing. Make it a WAV. No. And then just build a rapport, interact with them on social media, ironically, and just make them aware of who you are. Maybe even try and talk to the actual A&R, and just get involved. That might help.
I mean, I remember when Moisen was frustrated because he wasn't getting anywhere and blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly Play Me Records was interested. Now they're all over him, and other labels now are starting to take notice. And, and it just takes time and perseverance. And you've also got to be realistic. It could be just that your music isn't good enough yet, but it's definitely how you approach a label, because I don't want someone approaching me and they're just mental, or they just talk too much in their emails, because it's just going to be a nightmare to work with. So I think it's really important to see how someone interacts with you and sends you a sensible email like, hey, I've got a private SoundCloud link, you're my favorite label, I've followed you since this time, so blah blah blah, and send them the music that's relevant to that label, and if it's good, then the label will get back in touch with you, and if it's not, you can always follow up a week later. But do like what Moisen said works definitely, and he knows best, because I have my own label, so I don't approach other labels, but he's been through this, so I think you're the most qualified person to actually talk about it.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. You just got to keep hanging in there and believe in what you do. That's the main thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, be realistic. Like, ask yourself why you're being ignored. Because is your music good? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Are you approaching it the wrong way? Like, are you sending an email out and your music's already released on SoundCloud and everyone's heard it? Like, a lot of people don't realise this. They're like, oh, yeah, it's had 30,000 views, and then the label's like, but you've got the download button on, so what's the incentive for us to sell it? So think about things like that anyway. And that, again, I think we went into that in part 1. So if you want a more in-depth one, I think we went deeper into that then. And also, if you could spread this stuff around. It helps us in this world. You know, we put a lot of time and effort into doing this and we love doing it. But it'd be really great if you guys would share it and, you know, just give it some love because, you know, we would like more people to enjoy. And I'm also going to put this link in again for the poll. If you guys want to copy and paste it, it should be pinned. But in case it isn't, here it is. It'll take 3 minutes because it's literally 4 questions. And copy and paste this and answer it when you can. And it's anonymous, so we won't know who it is. Just keep it nice. And that's it. Let's go to the next question. Oh, I'm finding out that my music is putting pressure on my relationship. What should I do, Andy? I wouldn't ask me, mate, because you'll end up single for life. I'm married to music, nothing else. No one can tell me, oh, I'm the worst. Moisten, over to you.
It's a tough one. Like, because I like to believe and maintain a good relationship. Maybe, hopefully, sometimes I'm a bit of a pig, and music does kind of come first. I'll admit it. But if you are actually in that situation, you got to go and take yourself for a drink on your own. Go and walk. Go and do something. Have a think, and just think. What is important to me? How much is it important to me? And where's the strain coming from? And what can I do to balance both of these things out? Because it's all about balance. So if you don't want the relationship, then there you go. But if you don't want the production and the music, then
I'm just testing this link out because someone kindly said the link is invalid. So I'm just gonna test it out whilst you do that real. Continue with that question if you can. Oh, basically,
no problem. I'll move to the next one if you want to.
No, the link is fine. I just tested it, so I'll put it in again here. There you go, guys. Relationships are hard. You got to think about what happens at the end of your life. I think not the end, but when you're older, like it's lonely. You know what I mean? Like, I'm used to being single. I've been single for a very, very long time. I enjoy being single. I'm never bored. I do whatever I want when I want. But sometimes, of course, it would be really, really nice. But then I just know how selfish I am with music and how music is my wife. Music is my life. And it's like, I want to be able to make music at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I want to come and go by pleased with it. I don't want someone saying, what we're going to do about dinner? Are we watching a movie? Are we going? I just rather be doing this. But that's me. I'm a lone wolf. I've been a lone wolf my whole life. That doesn't mean it makes for a great life unless you are really good at being alone. So I think if you can handle the balance of this and compromise when you're young, then you've got a better chance of having an amazing music career and a good relationship. Whereas I went sort of balls to the wall because I had a Sony deal and I just did not have time for relationships when I was young. And unfortunately, that just kept going and going and going to the point where, you know, I've just decided, well, this is just my life then. It would take an extraordinary guy to understand that I could probably only see them every couple of weekends and that's sort of it. It would take an extraordinary person. So it does require compromise. You can't just be selfish all the time. But you also have to understand there's only a short window for you to be successful. If you're young and you're trying to make it in the music industry, you know, there are kids out there that are 18, 19, killing it. And you've got to dedicate yourself. You've got to be able to go on tour. You've got to be able to do all these things. And it means you need to be really good at communication so that even when you're in another country, you remember to phone your girlfriend or your boyfriend and be nice to them and make them feel like they're inclusive.
Yeah, actually, that is a super, super good point. I'm just going to echo that because, like, it is all about the communication. And I think I'm learning at the moment it's actually organisation's quite important too, to be completely transparent and things are said well in advance and you just communicate it. It's so important.
Because it could be a positive thing, right? You could be like, hey, tonight I'm working with Rap doing this stream. It's a chance for her to go out and see her girlfriends and do something different. You know what I mean? But if all you do, it's like, I wouldn't want a boyfriend that just played video games and ignored me all night. It's the same thing, making music. It's just the same concept, just a video game versus Ableton. You know, it takes 9-10 hours of your time and you're gone, lost in that wormhole. So communication, organization of time, I would sum up, and like what you just said, because that's really useful, and considerate, and then setting some time aside for that other person so that they know that the weekend is theirs or Wednesday nights are theirs or something like that, to watch whatever they want to watch. please don't make me watch crap like Love Island ever, because yeah. I'll go in the studio. Okay, what's the next one? Do you want to do this or shall I do it? What do you want to do?
Oh, I think this one's perfect for you.
Okay, I'm suffering from burnout. Sometimes I don't want to go in the studio. Does this mean it's not for me? Amber. Oh, wow. Yeah, musical impotence, I call that. I suffer from burnout many times in my life, and the only solution is to stop what you're doing and rest. Walk away from the studio. Don't do any music. Don't try. The harder you try, the more it will fail. I was in America when I lived there for 20 years, you know, I was on a plane every weekend, going to the airport every weekend for 20 years. Imagine that. And then 20 years that I lived in England prior to that, up and down the motorway, doing gigs. It got to the point where I was throwing up when I got to the airport because I couldn't stand to be near an airport again. I couldn't stand to get another flight, couldn't stand to get in a car again. And with burnout, it can last for years and years and years. It's one of the reasons why I didn't make drum and bass for many, many years. I was simply burnt out. And I just needed a rest. And that's why I got into acting. I did something completely different, gave me a different perspective of still being creative. But it's the same thing like going to the gym, right? If you overwork a muscle, you end up pulling that muscle and you need to do what? Rest it. So it's the same thing. When you don't feel like making music, don't go to your computer. Don't let the studio call you unless it's calling you. You know, just make sounds instead if you feel like doing that, or make effects or make a sample pack, or you don't have to be 24/7. And in fact, I would say one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life is that I've gone so hard in on everything that I didn't get enough balance in my life. I didn't have the night out with my boyfriend. I didn't have the perspective because I was so in it. And I was signed to a major record company, you know, and when you're signed to someone like Sony, you don't get that time. You can't afford to take 2 weeks off. You've got to deliver an album. You've got massive tours planned. You've got all of this stuff. So it can be really intimidating and overwhelming. And that's why a lot of times people do end up taking drugs and, you know, with thumb in their mouth rocking in a light corner of a room, because it's overwhelming, the pace that you have to go at when you're at that professional level. And I've been there, and I can tell you it's hard work. Like now I have a lot more control over my life. You know, I decide how many gigs I want to do. I only want to do a couple a month. It's good for me. You've got to know your limitations. But I don't make music much, and I'll come to the studio maybe 2-3 times a month, and that's it. You know, that's why it takes me so long to make a track, because I don't want to come in here and just be like in that headspace, not being able to sleep, the tunes looping in my head, that I'm not eating properly and I'm not training because I'm waking up at like 12 instead of 8, and it just becomes a bad cycle of health. So now I make sure that I wake up at like 8 in the morning. I make sure my cutoff is 2 o'clock at night. I make 2 a.m. I make sure I eat properly. I pre-prepare meals. I go to the gym every single Monday to Friday's gym, and you know, I make sure I've got balances, checks and balances in place, because ultimately, otherwise what happens is I just sit in the studio and I become this weird creature that doesn't brush her hair and wakes up at odd hours, and I don't do anything else, and I'm eating crap. It's just not, it's not cool. It's cool when you're in your 20s, but when you're in your 50s, you know, I'm 54 years old, you know, I want to take care of myself. I want to look good. You know, I want to be in this for a long time. This is my life. This is my career, you know?
Yeah, just and this sort of echoes what we said before. It was like organisation. If you manage to be organised, plan your time, schedule your time, and do it, you know, respectfully to yourself. Most of all, it will just make you run smoother. You'll make better music. You will make better decisions. You'll have a better relationship. You'll have whatever it is. It'll all just be a lot better.
Yeah. Yep. I am 54. Let's not make a big deal out of it.
I'm actually 73.
It's all age, isn't it? But it does matter, you know. And also, this is a sedentary job, sitting at a chair all the time, you know. So you want to get out and exercise and do that. But managing your time, I run my artist life like a business. You know, I'll do my emails from 9 to 12, then I go to the gym, and then you know, I'll do more emails, whatever I'm doing a certain time. Then my studio time will kick in after dinner, and I can go till, you know, 1 in the morning, and then cut off, and I'll lie in bed, watch TikToks till about 2, and then I'll start all over again. But I give it cut off and deadlines so that I don't suffer burnout. And, I had burnout last month from social media. I just don't want to do it anymore. I took a month off. The world won't stop turning if you take a break, but you could stop turning. So it might be good to just give yourself a break and go, I don't want to do this, because even though we love music, you can get sick of making music. You can get sick of it if it's all you do. Just try eating chocolate non-stop for like 5 hours. Eventually, you'll puke. It's the same thing with anything in life. You've got to have some balance. I think we've got time for one more question. You or me, Josh?
Yeah, I'll go for it. It's from Gizmo86. Says, I feel I'm a really good writer, but I'm not a great programmer. What should I do?
We did explain this in part 1 as well. So definitely go back to their Gizmo and have a look. What's your answer to that?
For me, I was sort of vice versa. I was sort of the other way round. I felt as though that I was a great programmer. I felt as though I could get into the nitty gritty with like tune creation and stuff. And to be honest with you, I tried to find somebody who's a great writer, and I tried to, whether it is I have to ask them for advice, I have to work with them, whether I, even if you have to sort of like do some lessons with them, it's fine. Like I've gone and done that, and done some lessons on actual music theory because I wasn't too good at that, and it just increased my scope of knowledge immensely, and it was just such a good thing, and that's definitely my advice for that kind of thing.
I cheated. But what he did, everything he's saying is great. But remember in part 1, we showed you in Ableton, you can right click on a little piece and you can slice to MIDI. So I learned how to program by slicing my sounds to MIDI and then emulating what they did. So I visually see where the kicks lay, and then I visually saw where the snares laid and where they laid the percussion and things like that. So I think often just looking at the way people programming them and then slicing them to MIDI is a really cool way to learn how to program. If you're not a good programmer, of course, there's a million YouTube's shows out there, man, with amazing people showing you how to do stuff. Becky Safe does some great tutorials on programming. Loads of people, Stranger, loads of people do amazing tutorials on all of that stuff, So yeah, I think just it doesn't matter if you're not good at everything. Pay for lessons. And talking of that, we do private mentorship as well. Fill in the poll, because we're thinking about doing a subscription where we teach people how to make tracks, but it's just an idea at this point. We're just thinking about it. But yeah, I pay for lessons and they've helped me immensely. And sometimes they didn't. You've got to find a good teacher, I guess. But loads of YouTube tutorials have helped me as well. So I think that's really, it's just a general bunch of stuff, but a lot is self-taught, like just sitting there and putting a loop on and just practicing and practicing. For me, the biggest thing is practice, because if I don't do something all the time, I forget how to do it. So what I tend to do is create a PDF. So let me show you, and then we'll probably, I don't know if I
just while Rap's getting that up, I've got a little I'd like to do a shout out to Diligent Fingers, amazing producer from Manchester. And also a shout out to Peace UK as well. Good friend through Twitch.
Oh, nice. That's nice when people can give shouts out. Let's see if I've got one of these here that I can open. Oh my God, you don't want to do that. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, I'll do this one here. Let's put this on the screen. Copy it and then open it. Right, I'll show you. This is sort of, because I have a really bad memory, honestly, and I worry about this kind of thing. So because I only go to the studio 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes 4, I can forget things, so I have to write them down. This is a really good way of doing it, and then it helps when I'm teaching and doing lessons as well. Share screen. Hold on a minute. Let me open this. There we go. So you can see that what I'll do, let me just open this up, is I will, in my own language, so ignore the spelling and all the caps, I'll put like things that I need to do, and I'll make a huge like lesson plan for it. And then this is great because I can use this for my students as well, which is awesome, everything that I need to know about different things. Like this particular section is all about drums and stuff like that, and little tricks that I like to use and making basses. So yeah, let me just stop the screen. But yeah, so making notes can help. And I think that is probably a nice way to end and just say thank you so much to everybody for joining us and doing everything that you can to support us. We really appreciate it. We've got one more Open the Door. I will edit this down and send it to those of you that have signed up on the link, and let me put that in again here.
Becky Safe's actually jumped in the chat.
Oh, I love Becky Safe. She's wicked. She's amazing. So let's give her a bit of love. Her YouTube show, because she puts so much work into what she does. And that girl is really, really talented and really good at what she does. So you should definitely go check out her page. And Stranger's another one who puts a lot of work into what he does and love. And, you know, just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant at what they do. Josh, will you just talk for a second whilst I find the link? Just talk, will you?
Yeah,
Say hello
no
to
problem.
Becky. Give some shouts out to people. They're all here. Hey, Becky.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. Got a shout out to Tyron John Rushgrove as well, watching through Facebook. Obviously, shout out to Becky Safe, Peace UK, Artful Smudge, Mr. Chase 1976. I'm assuming that was when you were born. Betty as well. Unbehavable, Behave. Voyager.
Put some links
Simple
in here
Sam.
for people.
Yeah, and just echoing as well, the poll would be really handy for us if you guys could fill that out.
Yeah,
just a bit of feedback.
Yeah, I mean, you can just take a screenshot of the things that I'm sending here, you know. If you've got any questions, we do this for people who've signed up. You can email at teamproper@gmail.com. I don't know if my brother was in the stream last week. He caught us and he says, "Oh my gosh, I was watching your stream," and he was in America, so he's like, "Oh yeah, you're really mad." And I was like, "So big shout out to you, Sean O'Hara. He's also a DJ. Whole family's DJs actually. But yeah, let me give you the poll link separately again, so you've got it, because that would really, really help us out to know what you'd like more of, and what you'd like less of. We'd have to do one with Becky. We'll have to have her as a guest.
Yep. That sounds good. And also a shout out quickly, just seen Bass Fanatic in the chat as well. Hey man, how you doing?
That's the poll link, peeps. Yeah, Tyson, is that Q? There you go, QWL Music. The rest are all, so there's loads of shouts out, there's loads. But we love doing this. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and for joining with us. And if you've got any constructive criticism... we had someone the other day email me, and all they did was just slag off everything, and boy did he get a piece of my mind. But yeah, constructive criticism, good. We know the mic's crackling, but constructive stuff, more of what you like, what you didn't like, but in a positive way, because we're doing this for free and sharing our time. And you can email us at teamproper@gmail.com and sign up in the link that I gave, because that's free, obviously, and then we'll notify you a few days before. We'll send you a trimmed down version of this stream, and we'll notify you an hour before. Any last words before we do last?
No, just I'm very grateful for everyone being here. It wouldn't exist without you guys, so it's fantastic.
So make sure you share the love, and we'll see you next Tuesday for the last session of Open the Door Part 4. And if you want this to continue, let us know. Fill out that poll. All right, loves. We'll see you later. Love and Bass, us. Bye.